Alright everybody, I hope you're doing well. Today's a cool video about three very cool swords. I'll be focusing on one of them, but the other two will be featured. So on the table I have three examples of patented tang swords. This is an 1885 Cavalry Trooper Saber. This one's attributed to the 21st Lancers. This is another 1885 Wilkinson, and this is an 1882 pattern. Now what separates this pattern from the other two is the lack of a knuckle guard, I guess, or knuckle kick out, and the length. This was the long pattern, so it measures a couple inches longer than the other two. And this one is attributed to the 5th Dragoon Guards, and I will be talking a little bit about their history. Yeah, I'll kind of get into it here. First I'll give you some close-ups of these swords. You can see them all together. Okay, so you can see the three. There's the Wilkinson. This one was used in the Boer War. This is a 21st Lancers 1885. And this is the 5th Dragoon Guard 1882 with its original sword knot. Okay, now that you've had a chance to look at these swords, I'll focus on the topic of the video, this 5th Dragoons example. So, kind of a little bit of the history. The 4th and the 5th Dragoon Guards were horse regiments that were called up in 1685 by James II to fight William of Orange, but they got their official title in 1788, officially being called the 5th Dragoons Guard, and then they were attributed to Princess Charlotte in 1804. So they were called the 5th Princess Charlotte Regiment of Dragoon Guards, and then I think they went through a few variations of that term. So, 5th Dragoon Guards. They've been in a number of pretty important historical campaigns and battles. They fought in 1701 during the Spanish War of Succession, 1808 at Beaumont during the French Revolution, in Salamanca during the Peninsula War, and they were famously at the Battle of Balaclava during the charge of the Heavy Brigades. The 5th Dragoon Guards were in the Heavy Brigades, which had a pretty pivotal role during the Battle of Balaclava, fighting the Russians. And then this sword in particular was in Sudan and Egypt and in the Boer War. So in Sudan and Egypt, and then the Boer War at the turn of the century. So this sword probably saw action or was deployed there. The date of manufacture is in 1884, which puts it in the same year as the Nile expedition, and then this was probably carried in South Africa during the Battle of Ladysmith, where the 5th Dragoon Guards were instrumental in the defense of Ladysmith. 5th Dragoon Guards also served in World War I and were amalgamated with the 6th Illiskitting Dragoon Guards in 1922. So they had a long and storied history. They became the 5th Ennis-killing Dragoon Guard after 1922, and then in 1992 they were again amalgamated into with, like, I think the 4th and the 7th Dragoon Guards into the Royal Dragoon Guards, and they're still in active service today. So going over a few features of this sword, it has a number of unit markings, date marks. It was constructed in July of 1884. Famously, the Nile expedition took place in late October and finally arrived to relieve Major Gordon in January of 1885. So perhaps this made its way out to the Nile expedition. I don't know, but I know the 5th Dragoon Guards were in Egypt at the time. But this was definitely with them in the Boer War. It features 5D on the guard there, denoting 5th Dragoon Guard, and it has a I don't know, rack number or a assignment number of 300. Had some other numbers here which are crossed out, which are kind of hard to read, as well as its other regimental and assignments. So this was a long pattern that was cut down, I believe, around 1885 to conform to the length standards at the time. So originally this would have been much longer. It's still longer than the other 2 examples on the table here, but by maybe an inch or 2. Originally this would have been, I don't know, maybe 2 more inches long. It features its original sword knot, which is buff leather, and has a little collar that slides. This is in really good shape. These are famous for being the full patent tang, and they have a very comfortable leather composite grip with 2 slabs riveted on either side, and the tang pressed through the butt cap and sort of sandwiched on like a press fit. So it still has its leather collar here. These patented tang swords didn't need leather washers for retention. The whole thing is solid. It's sheet steel, about 2 millimeters thick, and so there was no risk of thrusting through your guard over time. It's a solid guard, so it didn't need the leather retainer or the leather washer for compression. It just retained that for the use of a scabbard, which this example does not have. I acquired this from Matt Easton of Scala Gladiatoria, who has a famous YouTube channel by that name, and he also deals in antique militaria. So I had bought this from him, and I'm making a video about it. What I love about these swords is, aside from the full width tang, or the Maltese crosses, I think this is, for me, it's something so like Three Musketeers, like, where you have a pierced guard with just a simple Maltese cross. I just think that's like the coolest thing ever that they chose that. I have some family connection, and I have some family connection to the Maltese cross, so it's just neat to have that as a personal anecdote. So you will notice with the hilts, the 1882 is lacking the finger comfort loop or extension there, or kick out, on the 1885. Excuse me. But nevertheless, it is quite a nice sword. Let me see if I can do this with gloves on. Hang on. Yeah, it's got a nice deep ring. sometimes with gloves you can't like make these swords ring, but I found that with these full width tang swords you can get good rings out of them. Here's a Wilkinson. Let's see if it will. This one will. Yeah. So, but yeah, going back to the 5th Dragoon sword, I'll give you a little bit of the history. They saw combat as a regiment over many centuries and many decades, and some very pivotal campaigns, and it's just neat to have a piece of their history. The tune that I played at the beginning is the Soldiers Chorus, which is the official slow march song of the 5th Dragoon Guards before they were amalgamated into the Royal Dragoon Guards in 1982. So for anybody who is in the 5th Dragoon Guards who's watching this, know that I'll protect this sword and keep it nice so that your heritage won't be lost. Yeah, that's about it for this sword. I want to thank Matt Easton for having one available at the time when I bought it. It's just neat. He has swords on and off for sale sporadically, so shout out to him. If you are in the market for an antique sword, he finds some really cool examples. He tends to go for more officers' swords and more definitively marked swords. Like this example was obviously issued to the 5th Dragoon Guards, and this is just a trooper's sword. Interestingly enough, one of the only noted Victoria Crosses earned by the 5th Dragoon Guards was during the Boer War at Ladysmith by a Lieutenant Norwood. I believe that was the name on the roster when I was doing some research on the 5th Dragoon Guards. So a contemporary of this trooper's owner, or this trooper sword's owner, would have won a Victoria Cross. So this sword must have been in some pretty heavy fighting at Ladysmith to have earned a man a Victoria Cross. So pretty cool. I will leave it there, and I'll do some more video of these swords all together with the Soldiers Chorus of the 5th Dragoon Guards playing in the background. Thanks for watching.